Dear audience, welcome to the show POWERchat. Through this episode, we are today discussing about humanitarian work, social service and youth engagement. And we are today joined by three special guests engaged in peace building, youth engagement and social service, including that of the humanitarian work. I'm joined today by Dr. Piya Ratna Maharjan. He is the president of International Youth Society. He brings extensive knowledge on youth, development and international affairs. I'm also joined today by Dr. Aphinita Chaichana. She is the Global Commander-in-Chief of the United Nations Peacekeeping Force Council, UNPKFC. She joined us today from Thailand, and we are also joined by Dr. Lye Ket Yong. He is the Director General of the Southern Philippines Muslim and Non-Muslim Unity and Development Association. He is joining us from Dubai. And today, through this special episode, we are discussing about the humanitarian work and youth engagement during the time of pandemic. For technical reasons, we are not live on Facebook, but our YouTube version will be available shortly through this broadcast. I would like to welcome all of you on the show POWERchat, beginning from Dr. Piya Ratna Maharjan. We are also joined today by Dr. Aphinita Chaichana and Dr. Lye Ket Yong. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you very much for giving this opportunity.
It is my pleasure, sir, ma'am. I'm starting from the general observation of humanitarian work and youth engagement during the time of pandemic from Dr. Piya Ratna Maharjan. How do you assess the situation of humanitarian work?
Yes, this pandemic COVID-19 has brought the very unprecedented situation whereby no one has that kind of experience before, and especially the young people who have been no experience at all, facing this kind of situation, and due to that, in the young generation, they are having depressions and some kind of negative influences in their mind, and the kind of mental health is become one of the major issue during this pandemic. And back to Nepal, we have been locked down for months due to this pandemic, and the young people very much stressed how to face this challenge and how to cope with, and how we can help out of this kind of humanitarian efforts.
Well, Dr. Piya Ratna Maharjan, you are long engaged in mobilizing youths for social and humanitarian works. You said that youths are facing a lot of challenges, including that of the depression and suicides. What are you doing through different channels addressing these problems to ensure that they effectively engage in humanitarian works during the time of pandemic?
Yes, after we facing this pandemic situation, so with this International Youth Society, which we are having more than 141 countries around the world, and because we cannot meet in physically, also to have meeting. So due to this, that we had that kind of Zoom meeting, which we are doing on live. We have been communicating with local Nepalese young people, and we are teaching how we can help each other. It's the only best way we can do it. What we have, we can give, and we can extend our hands, not only in Nepal, Asia, but also the other parts of the world. So through this network, we made effort to influence and motivate young people for the humanitarian drive, where that the young people are the people for the present and for the future. They are the core members. They are the dynamic force behind us who can take this humanitarian and social work to the society and serve the society for the betterment.
Well, thank you, Dr. Maharjan. I will come back to you. I'm going with Dr. Aphinita Chaichana. You are leading the United Nations Peacekeeping Force Council. based in Thailand, and you are also associated with several peacekeeping and security initiatives globally and in Southeast Asia. Dr. Chaichana, how do you observe the situation, and what are the efforts your institutions are focusing upon overcoming the challenge faced by this pandemic?
Namaste, Sawadee from Thailand. And first of all, we have a lot of work in Thailand and also from around the world. Also, especially, I have a good chance to work for Nepal, and by being by our hands, small hand together. When your country Nepal have a lot of problem in earthquake last 4-5 years ago. Yes, we are the main organization from Thailand to support, and we work so many country and with leader to try hand together to support for the better place by our action. And we have security, we have the government, we have the so many people, and we preparing for work and join hand to working together.
Well, Dr. Chaichana, very interesting. You said that you are supporting to the organizations and people of different countries, including Nepal. What are the key challenges and opportunities arising from this pandemic in relations to your work, especially that of the peace and humanitarian initiatives?
I'm sorry. I want to brother Lay help to me little bit, because my English is not perfect.
Please
Brother
go
Lay,
on.
can you explain to me?
What are the challenges faced by people serving during the time of pandemic, and how are you trying to address them? Any challenges you are facing while delivering your work around, including here in Nepal?
Because we are born from human being and we are the human. When the people we work so many more than 10 years, we have a lot of about volunteer to on our hand. We will create to people when people have the problem, or when we will support without nothing in return. When many people in our country in Thailand, when they problem, we always preparing for our society very strong, because we support them first. When whatever when we do, all the will become to support us again to make the big thing to support in humanity and humanitarian work.
Well, thank you, Dr. Chaichana. I'm coming back to you. I'm now going with Dr. Lye Ket Yong. How are you observing the situation and the opportunities around and challenges around? How are you planning to reach out, your stakeholders, overcoming the problems and challenges faced by the pandemic, Dr. Yong?
Namaste, and thanks for having me today on the POWERchat show. Yeah, what my counterpart from Nepal, Mr. Dr. Piya Ratna has mentioned, that the global outbreak of the coronavirus pandemic has impacted societies all across the world, causing great hardships, sufferings, and socio-economic issues. The actions taken by the governments in almost all countries across the world to control the pandemic has resulted in companies and businesses shutting down, massive layoffs, unemployment, and also financial difficulties for families to sustain their daily needs. So, as a peace activities and religious and humanitarian leader in the UAE, I have received a lot of requests, daily basis, appealing for help through the social media and also through the email, since March 2020. I have then initiated the Humanitarian Aid, Hands That Help Humanity UAE, by collaborating with various NGOs and also local charitable organizations. Now, our objective of the Hands That Help Humanity are to identify those vulnerable and badly impacted groups and clusters, those who are laid off, has no means to sustain themselves, because as you know, in the UAE, right, out of the 10 million population, right, more than 90% are expatriates, whereas only 10% are locals. So we have a big workforce which are expatriates, right? So during this time, this moment of times, I think the construction sector are very much affected, and also the airlines, and also the various industries, the tourism industries, and even the oil industries are badly impacted. So there's a lot of layoffs, right? People are out of job, right? They don't have basic needs. So our objectives is to identify these various clusters and to distribute food rations and food supplies, right? In coordination with various foreign mission also, we are providing accommodation to those who are stranded when the lockdown happens. Yeah.
Well,
So as
Dr.
far
Young,
as the
Dr. Young,
yes,
what are the immediate actions that needed to address this problem from your experience, very briefly? What are the immediate actions that needed to address this pandemic?
Okay. Our immediate action, right, is to engage, right, and to get all our volunteers together, and then we have break down into various responsibilities, and then what we do is that those funds and those donations, contributions that we receive, right, we have a plan, right, to identify and distribute the food rations and food supplies to those who are badly impacted. That is number one. Number two is that we provide counseling to those with mental health issues during this moment of time.
Well, thank you, Dr. Young. I'm going with Dr. Piya Ratna Maharjan. You were discussing, saying us that youths are depressed and their effective engagement is required during the time of humanitarian work. So what do you think, what strategies the countries like Nepal should adopt to engage youths in their full strength during the time of pandemic?
Yes, now with recently lockdown has been relaxed, and we are now meeting various NGOs and young groups in this Nepal, and also now already appeal through our sister Aphinita and Dr. Lye that we are going to carry on the relief program in very soon, and we are planning for like 6,000 people around Kathmandu valleys, which they're having a problem with after the economic breakdown due to this pandemic, and we are going to help that. So we are discussing with Dr. Sister Aphinita how we can immediately mobilize the young people distributing the relief for in Nepalese community. So around like 6,000 communities in families in Kathmandu Valley. At the same time, we had a flood and a landslide situation recently in Nepal, which is still going on. So around like 20,000 families, with the help of other organizations, also now going to mobilize our young people in the train Tarai area for like 20,000 relief package they are going to distribute through our youth action in Nepal.
Well, thank you, Dr. Piya Ratna Maharjan. I think there is some audio problem. I'm not getting you properly, but I hope it would be fixed by our friends. I'm going with Dr. Aphinita Chaichana. How are you working? You are affiliated with several organizations of the UN initiatives as well. How do you work with the governments around the world and in this Southeast Asia region?
The first of all, I would like to tell everyone is the first of all, everything important because in the action louder than word. We have to work from hard and understanding. Because when we work so hard, when people around the world can trust, we are the real action, not only talking or promoting. So people will join hand with us. Before that, very not easy to be like here. We fight more than over 10 years, we work so long time. So many different organizations, more than 32 organizations we handle and we work on it. And people for now in Thailand, we go into open so many branch from the United Nations force keeping Peacekeeping Force Council in Thailand. And also we going to open the branch of the uh, AISP Spear Thailand also. Because we work with the force who is work for the humanitarians and for peace, outstanding. And we also last 2 years ago, we worked so many part of the piece outstanding for youth, for make a lot of activity to be big, because we bring so many different society to work on it and action always for the image, for the education, for the cost free. And also the United Nations give our cost free for the young people, for the next generation, and support them to inspire them to how to support last generation. Before new generation, we have to take care and we have to be back and give their value, who is really outstanding for our generation and our future.
Well,
Yes.
Dr. Aphinita, could you also share with us how can we engage youths and new generations or motivate them towards the humanitarian work?
Yes, humanitarian work, we must to don't think anything return. You work from hard and you must to who you are, why you born from your mother. If your mother born your everything, you have to understand how to bring peace. You have to bring peace in your side first. So if you happiness, everyone to happiness, don't cheat people, don't think negative people. Think good and be positive and doing positive. Anything will be fine and everything will happen on the lesson, sir.
Well, thank you, Dr.
Sorry for my
Chaichana.
English.
I'm going with Dr. Lye Ket Yong. Dr. Young, what are the ways addressing humanitarian crisis, given that there is a different political situation across the world? How are you preparing through your organizations, supporting or collaborating with the organizations in the different or various political landscape around?
Yes, I think because my position is also involved, I'm also the appointed as the senior director of the United Nations Peacekeeping Forces with General Dr. Aphinita in charge of the diplomatic and foreign affairs. So we have to constantly update ourselves and also always be knowledgeable and understand the mission and also the objectives of the United Nations various agencies. Yeah. So the way to approach and address humanitarian crisis would depends on the countries where the crisis happens, the political landscape, and also the government of the day. Right. Seeking approvals and collaboration with the various foreign mission is very important, and also to work with trusted and also legitimate NGOs. So because as we see, the advent of the multimedias has actually changed the way we work. Yeah. So there are a lot of organizations which are actually non-legalized and also non-recognized by the United Nations, but they are there. So sometimes because of the bad things that they have done, right, it erodes the trust of the people. Yeah. So that is one thing. Now, the government of the day and the political landscape is very important to us. How we approach and do our humanitarian work, right? So, number one, we have to understand the government, right? And we have to adapt to the conditions and regulations of the particular countries that we are going to work with. Yeah. And also, it very much depends on the nature of the crisis, whether it is a natural disasters, it's a disease and pandemic, or whether it's a victims of wars and conflict, right? So, by knowing the nature of the crisis, and also the crisis where it happens, right, we we will mobilize our resources, right, and also our logistic and equipments, medical supplies accordingly.
Well, thank you, Dr. Young, but I have a follow-up question starting from you, and I will go with rest of the panelists. Dr. Young, how do you ensure that your resources are, properly utilized? Often there is public criticism that the non-governmental sector's resources are not properly utilized. There is accountability question. So how do you ensure from your organizations that your resources reach out to the appropriate persons and they are appropriately utilized? There is not misuse of the resources you engage with. Dr. Young.
Exactly, my point. Because first of all, in order to be legitimate and also to have accountability, we ourselves we have to prove to people that we are trusted. Yeah. So the same thing happened. 100% of our contributions triggered out to the victims and the various beneficiaries. Yeah. So whatever 100% we get, right, we convert that, because one thing about our organization, the Hands That Help Humanity, UAE, we do not dispense cash, because there are, as you can see, there are various requests, right? Some for cash and some for various specific items. We don't give specific items, neither do we give cash. Yeah. So what we do is that we have a committee, right? Our committee, we have a kind of a treasurer who raise the fund, right? And then for accountability purposes, we have external auditors who audit us all the time, right? All the bills, all the accounts are being audited, yeah. And the volunteers, they are trained. All our volunteers are trained, right? Depending on their talents, because during this COVID moment of time, a lot of people are asked to work from home. Right? A lot of them are being laid off. Right? So we have a lot of good Samaritans who help us and who volunteer to work. Right? We interview them and we find out their talents. Right? And based on their talents, right, we will utilize them where it works. Right? So that is how we do things. For example, we have logistics, we have marketing team, and we have processing team, and also we have the distribution team. Right? So, and also we identify various clusters, because in UAE the atmosphere is totally different. Like if we are going to, for example, we are going to distribute food, right, to the local South Asian communities, right? We have to give specific food where they can utilize, right? For example, even the rice matters, right? They take like Indian basmati rice and things like that. Whereas the same thing we can't give to the Filipino communities, because they are eating different type of rice, like the Southeast Asian communities from Thailand and from Philippines and Vietnam. We have to give different type of, for example, like jasmine rice and eggs and instant noodles, right? Whereas the same thing doesn't go for another community. So we have a team that identify those and do specific marketing, and these resources itself.
Thank you,
we coordinate
Dr. Young. I'm going with Dr. Piya Ratna. Dr. Piya Ratna Maharjan, you are working here in Nepal, but representing several international organizations, especially that of the youths. You might also faced with the problems on resource utilization and all, the criticism from the public. How do you ensure that your works, your activities reach out to the public with utmost transparency? Very quickly.
Yeah, so we have like as you said, the committee which we are dealing with this, and we have the organization which is registered under the government. And what we do is like depend on how many people have been in the society have to contribute. will be with the name list, and will purchase the goods that need relief package, and those who receive under the name, they have to get the package and they will sign for that. So that make sure that the person at the end will receive. Yeah. So once they get the relief fund, so they have to sign even our paper. So we have like a name, address, and the signature. So we have the total number, how many people have received, and the person who receive also will be always signed there. So this in this way, we have the open transparency of that, and distribution, numbering. We have pictures and we have reports, and all will be compiled, and we'll let them go for the auditing. Yeah, so it's more transparent over here.
Well, thank you, Dr. Maharjan. There are many interesting issues, but we are coming to the end of the show. Finally, I have one question to each one of you. Your message to the people, especially that of the youths, trying to engage in humanitarian and social work. What do you want to say or disseminate your message towards the humanitarian works, starting from Dr. Aphinita? What is your message to the youths of today? What do you want to say to them engaging in humanitarian work? Very quickly.
Me?
Yes, your message to the youths today.
Young
Yes,
people.
first of all, the future for the world will going to happen. We have to watch your time. We have to work for support for helpful people. Don't think anything return. Everything will be back to you better than you ever know. But you have to volunteer from your heart. Peace. You can spreading a culture of peace around by you can sing, can song, can sport, can do everything, whatever do happiness and bring to your friend to do together to make the society of the peace, of the spreading a culture of peace and happiness. You can do anything. Yes, good.
Well, thank you, Dr. Chaichana. Dr. Young, very quickly, what is your message?
Yes, our youths of today are our leaders of tomorrow. Yeah. So it is imperative that all NGOs should encourage, engagers, and also empower our youth to be involved in humanitarian work. So I would like to encourage, I'd like to give a call to all our youths to come out to help us. Yeah, we have various NGOs out there, right? Especially those who are registered with the NGOs. Yeah, it is very good for them, good training, and also if they do such things, right, they are able to have all the good experience to enable them to be the future leaders of tomorrow.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Yang. Very quickly, Dr. Maharjan, we are running out of time. Very quickly, what is your message to the youth today?
Yes, it's a young engagement. So we just do motivation for them to come forward for this humanitarian drives. We are facing this pandemic situation. So we are organizing again national level and international level of young people come together how to help each other.
Well, thank you, Dr. Piya Ratna, Dr. Aphinita Chaichana, and Dr. Lye Ket Yong. It was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much for sharing your insights through this program. Thank you so much. Dear audience, time now to wrap up the show. Keep watching us. See you next week. Namaste.